Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the second round of this March Madness Nintendo Edition bracket. In the last one, we saw Kingdom Hearts and Persona 5. I had to double check it real quick. These were the two games that ended up advancing into the Elite Eight, our last eight. Today, we have a couple of intriguing matchups, to say the least. I want to preface this by saying that me and Nick love each other. We are great friends. We get along great. All three of us, really. I'm leaving Travis out because Travis won't be arguing as much as we will be.
I am friends, kind of, too.
Yeah,
this is why we preface a video by saying, see you on the other side.
Yeah, when we insult each other, we do it out of love, so don't think we hate each other, but, you know, it might not. Who knows what's going to happen? I say this now, and we're going to end up getting along great.
It might be a sweep. You never know.
Yeah, we'll find out. So let's jump right into the first one. The first one is Super Mario 64 and Metroid Prime. I'll give unbiased openings before I change my tone on this. Super Mario 64 is a legendary game. Really the first iconic 3D game that ever came out that set the stage for so many incredible Mario games. There's a lot of things that I'm going to question, but one thing that nobody can question is the legacy that this game left behind. It put Mario into the 3D world, and everything that came after it sort of stemmed from this. It's the grandfather of 3D Mario. Going up against Metroid Prime in a similar fashion, it was Metroid's jump into the 3D era. It is also Nintendo's real first successful FPS game. And so both of these games were iconic in starting something new to open the floor. And this is the first debate point I want to have. Metroid Prime did an amazing job with the FPS thing. I'll start with the soft point. I won't say it harsh. I don't think Mario 64 nailed the platforming all that well. So if we're going by what nailed their goal better, and I'll stop talking after this, I think Metroid Prime nailed its goal better. And I'll start with that.
So I'm also going to do this because we don't have a lot of time to discuss these points. I'm going to concede a couple of points in these games' favor. For one, Metroid Prime destroys Mario 64 on the story. So we're not debating that topic. Metroid Prime wins on story. Super Mario 64, I would say, wins on fun factor. By fun factor, I literally mean childlike whimsicality. I'm not talking about enjoyment you get out of the game. I'm talking about just going in with a derpy smile and ending with a derpy smile. Metroid Prime has a very serious aspect. So in terms of those things, I just want to put those in the way, because I think those are kind of unanimous. Do we kind of agree on that point at least?
Sure.
Okay. Now, the first point that I actually want to make... Sorry, did you actually have a question before? I kind of forgot.
No, I didn't have a question.
Just keep going.
Okay.
You're good.
So, Metroid Prime, I would say in terms of bringing their own series into the 3D era was done better. But I will say Metroid Prime had more time to do so. And if we're focusing in on these games and like Mario games take a long time to make, same with Metroid games. I know there's 3 Metroid Prime games, and there's how many 3D Mario games that there are out there. The reason I'm bringing this up is because with the amount of time that Metroid had to refine it, Super Mario 64, considering that it is a launch title, I would say that I give it a little more of a leniency in terms of what caused, basically in terms of when you compare it to a couple of the games that were released around the time, because of the fact that it was in the very beginning of the actual life cycle of the console versus near the end of it. When you have more time to develop for the console and see how games are done, you are going to make a better product, or you are more likely to make a better product. Sorry, a lot of talking. Please debate now.
No. So and it's funny. I'll make this quick. We had a huge debate about this yesterday. Not even talking yet, which is
45 minutes long.
Yeah, and this is one of the disagree points I have. To me, that sounds like an excuse for Mario 64. I get Metroid Prime had more time. In the end, that made a better game. To me, the development stories are cute and they're fun to read, but I can't. It sounds like you're saying I should vote for Mario 64 out of pity because they had a shorter time, so they couldn't make as great of a game.
Wait, my turn.
Metroid Prime had incredible length, and they had a lot of time to make their game. Therefore, they made the better game, right? That's kind of how I see what you said. I get Mario 64 didn't have a lot of time, and as a result, they had a clunky game that probably didn't feel as good as it could have felt, right?
Okay, so I said that in the wrong way then. What I mean is that in terms of development time for the actual console itself, I'm just saying that games that are released in the beginning of the life cycle that actually are able to dictate what happens later on, because there was other... I know Metroid was kind of the first shooter game that goes on the GameCube, but I highly doubt that it was the first-person shooter that came out on the GameCube. I could be wrong. But I'm saying that with the more time that a console is there, I'm not saying that you should vote for it out of pity. I'm saying that you should take into consideration the conditions that the game was made in.
the GameCube FPS games are garbage, I think. And
except for Metroid
I'm going to
Prime.
piss people off. Time Splitters, I despise. I think it is an awful game. The way they did aiming
Big
is
Mike's
great.
going to be mad.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's shitty. The aim is shit in that game. And Metroid Prime, I think, is the best FPS game that came out on the Nintendo GameCube. And like I said, what else came out third-party wise to me is irrelevant. This is Nintendo's first attempt. The other big Nintendo FPS game is GoldenEye 007. It was fun at the time, similar to Mario 64, but it did not age at all. Metroid Prime has aged like fine wine. It's a game that came out, 16, 17 years ago at this point, and it's still fun to play. It's still one of the best Metroid Prime games out there. If I asked you what Metroid game you want to play, you're going to pick Metroid Prime 1, 2, or 3, unless you like that older style. Mario 64, and I know there's people that like to play it. I think, and this is what I've been saying, I think it's due to nostalgia. Because Super Mario 64, every Mario 3D game that came out after that, I think is better. They control better, they feel better, the environments are better. Mario 64 has been beaten in every single way. The games that came after Metroid Prime are not even necessarily better than Metroid Prime. I think that game did so much well that it aged incredible. Mario 64 did not age well,
I don't think
and
that
I think that's a big
literally
factor.
correlates at all.
To what?
I don't think that really saying that. So we had this debate yesterday, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because from what I get out of Mike's logic there is saying that if games came out that were better afterwards, it means the original is shit. And I don't agree with that logic.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's what you're saying. That's what it's sounding like, because you're saying the Metroid Prime games that came afterwards were on the same level, but Super Mario games only got better, so the original had to have been worse in relation. I don't think that's true.
Strictly talking based on age, as far as how they age, though. I'm saying Metroid Prime withstands like that because it aged well. Super Mario 64, to me, doesn't withstand that because I don't think it aged well.
I personally think if we're talking about the whole aging concept, I just think games on the N64 age worse because it was a clunkier, didn't have as big of a graphical resolution, and the games on the GameCube, because it's at 480p.
Aged great. Don't start. Banjo-Kazooie aged
Banjo-Kazooie
incredible.
is one of the very rare ones that did. But you cannot tell me that Mario
rare.
Party aged well. You can't tell me that Diddy Kong Racing aged well. You can't tell me that,
Nope.
well, Paper Mario, everything's paper, so it's kind of 2D.
Yeah,
so
that
one
game
doesn't
did
really
age
count.
pretty all right. Conker's
But
Bad Fur Day aged pretty well.
Conker's Bad Fur Day. No, it did not. Are you kidding?
Yes, it did. It's a fun
No, it
game
did
to
not.
play.
I love Conker's Bad Fur Day. It did not age well.
I think it's...
All right. Let's go back to Super Mario 64 and Metroid Prime.
Okay, so let's go back then, because I was going to say Conker's Bad Fur Day had an awesome story. Mario 64 had nothing. Come to my castle, I baked you a cake, Mario.
I already conceded the point on the story.
I know, but that's my point.
Mario 64
So I'm
appealed to
saying
childlike whimsicality,
Mario 64
Mike.
could have done so much to make it age better, but it didn't. It was...
What could it have done to make it age better? What?
Not be a
It was the
prototype
first game
for
on
the
the
N64. That's fine. Are you telling me games on the SNES and NES did not have good stories? And yes, I know you can see that point, but I'm saying it's such a bare-boned experience. They just put worlds in that are very template worlds for what Mario's done before, and I'm not saying the worlds were badly designed for what they were, but it's just, here's a world, you're going to collect stars, and it copy, repeat for everything else. There was nothing that made the game stand out, except for the fact that it was 3D, is my point. Other 3D games that came out around that time. So outside of the fact that it was innovative for being 3D, what did this game do that was so special?
Boss fights.
It was not the first game with boss fights, so what do you mean?
It wasn't
the boss
first game
fights
with
in this
boss
game
fights.
were
I'm saying for a platformer, a 3D platformer with boss fights. That was
but
like
the
the
boss
first game that
fight
did it.
were not good in this. The Bowser boss fight is pathetic, and it's the same every time you face him. Which, granted, Mario games do all the time.
Mike, you're trying to base this on the level of so many other games that are in the future that have been able to innovate on the formula. This is literally a game that is supposed to bring in the childlike innocence and just straight fun factor. You're not supposed to analyze it and think about it on all these strict levels. You're just supposed to enjoy the game.
And that's
but since
fine.
you don't enjoy the game because you're not used to N64 games, you literally throw this game away saying, "Oh, it's clunky." Yes, it's clunky, but you're not approaching it with the sense of it's supposed to have perfect graphics. It's not supposed to have a perfect story, and it's not supposed to encapsulate me and challenge my mental stability, my mental capacity on a very deep level. It's not supposed to do that. It's just supposed to be fun. That's
everything
what
you're saying is completely
and
fair.
It's your fun factor.
So, okay, fine. So I will play this game expecting to play a game that wasn't designed great, that didn't have great graphics, all this.
It was designed well.
But
we
are playing, this is a tournament for the best game. If I have to play this game saying I can't go into this looking at graphics, looking at the most, I have to ignore the clunky gameplay, but we're supposed to be analyzing these games at that level. Metroid Prime was not clunky. For being a GameCube shooter, it's better than some of the Xbox One shooters I've played. That game didn't have clunkiness. So to me, one of them is so refined, one of them isn't. Mario 64 in 1996 when it came out, fantastic game. But it did not age well. Metroid Prime was fantastic when it came out 18 years later. It still holds up. Mario 64 does not hold up. If Metroid Prime came out today with better graphics, it would be a hit. If Mario 64 came out the level design it has with better graphics, it would not be a hit. People would be saying, what the hell is this?
So are you voting for this game based on if it was released today? Because I don't think that's the best way to do so.
I'm voting for it saying Metroid Prime, when it was released at the time, I think did more and had a more well-rounded game than Mario 64. Mario 64 to me feels like a prototype because of what you're telling me. You're saying don't look at graphics, don't look at story, don't worry about the gameplay, just look at it as a fun game, mindless game.
No, okay. I'm saying you're supposed to focus on the fun you're supposed to have. I'm not saying to ignore the graphics. First of all, the graphics for that time were outstanding. But what I'm saying about that is you're trying to. I know we're trying to be psychoanalytical on so many like very stringent points, trying to give the edge one way or another. But that's not what this game ever tried to do. This game was only for people to sit down and like enjoy themselves while playing it. It wasn't supposed to be a challenging experience. So I feel like if we're trying to judge it on those criteria, I think it's kind of doing it a disservice. But for people who, again, this does appeal. I will say that this game is probably one of the games that really does appeal to nostalgia. But personally, I never played this game until I was, I don't know, in my teens, like late in my teens, when I had my DS and I played it for when it came out for a new Super Mario 64 DS. But that's like, it's not supposed to be a game that is supposed to challenge you in a very deep way. If we're going by that metric, yes, Metroid Prime is the better game, but I don't think that's what Mario 64 was trying to do. I think Mario 64 was trying to deliver on a very enjoyable experience that not many games can reach that same level of just being fun to play. I mean, I still have yet to play a game where I've had more fun than Mario Odyssey. I still think Mario Odyssey is my favorite. This is one of my new top 5 games. There's not many games that are more fun than that game. And that word fun is so hard to encapsulate in all these metrics that we're trying to describe.
So then let's go back to this point. Which one accomplished the goal better? Mario 64 to me was the first 3D Mario game. Awesome. It accomplished its goal in being created, and it was fun. To be fair, it was fun because there was nothing else like it at the time. Oh, you're choking me. You're killing me. My thing is, like, if there were other 3D games that came out around the time, and it's hard because the last time we talked about this, you were right. It's hard to compare Banjo-Kazooie because it came out a couple years later. We don't have anything to compare this to, so it's hard to say if this was the best 3D game at the time because it was the only one at the time. But
the closest we could compare it to is Sonic Adventure, and that was released many years down the road, and that's not even for the same console. Because
my thing, though, is
rivals.
Metroid Prime we can compare to other companies that legitimately do shooters. Nintendo came into a genre they don't really do, and I know they teamed up with an outside company, but they did something they don't normally do, and they rocked it, and they beat half of the FPS companies out there. To me, I feel like that means they accomplished that goal more because they tackled other beasts head-on and won that. 3D Mario and Mario 64, a couple years later, there were already better games out, like Banjo-Kazooie and Conker's. Metroid Prime, you look a few years down the road, there were not better futuristic shooters out there. The only one else that comes to mind is Halo, but even Halo does not deliver a similar experience. We haven't talked a lot about Metroid Prime. You got to keep in mind, there's so much detail in the lore. Like, when you think of games with heavy lore, you think of Xbox 360.
Mike, I already conceded that point to Metroid Prime, though. That's the thing. That's why we don't have to go into it, because we don't have time.
Right, but it's not fair to do that. You're basically saying, oh yeah, story better, let's ignore that. But we need to talk about really how in-depth it is. Because you're telling me to ignore the story of Metroid Prime because, yeah, it wins that. But I'm trying to say, like, it wins that by a landslide. I know, but I'm saying, like, we're hung up on a point trying to say Mario 64 is better in one category, but we're ignoring that Metroid Prime, to me, wins in so many other categories. It wins in gameplay, it wins in the smoothness of it, it wins in the story. I would even go so far as to say it's about a tie in music. I'm not going to say Metroid Prime is better music, but oh my god, the ambience in that game is incredible, so I don't want to pick in that. What I'm saying is Mario 64 seems to win in two categories, even if I concede them to you. The impact it had, and that was only because it was the first 3D game, and the fun because it was a bare-bones experience. But that also depends. It's mindless fun for a child and for us if we're just doing mindless. But really, if you're looking for an in-depth kind of exploration experience, you'd probably find Metroid Prime more fun. So I don't even know if it necessarily wins for everybody. But even if I conceded those two, that seems like the only things it wins in. To me, Metroid Prime wins in so much else.
Which was the goal of what Super Mario 64 did. Both of those things that it won was the reason that game was made, and it absolutely destroyed it on both of those points. Metroid Prime went for more, and Metroid Prime achieved on more. But Super Mario 64 absolutely destroyed on the points that it went for. So I'm just saying, in terms of which, I understand your line of thinking, and again, we can probably discuss these games in way more depth, but I think that I still think we're going to be repeating ourselves for a while, and we can't seem to do that because
Yeah,
we can't seem to do that anymore. But let's just vote because I think we've made most of our points, and we can get more nitpicky as it goes on. But I think we should just vote.
Yeah, Travis should obviously go last. My vote's clear. It's Metroid Prime. I love both. I'm not saying Mario 64 is a bad game, but to me, Metroid Prime just accomplished so much. Yeah, I don't know. It's Nintendo's first FPS, and it was incredible. I have to give my vote to Metroid Prime.
I still think it's Mario 64. I mean, in terms of what the game went for, in terms of the actual fun factor that it has, which is something that you can't really encapsulate, in terms of not being able to, making an experience that you can't mimic in any of the later games down the road, unless it's your first 3D Mario game. That level of fun is something that is not able to be matched, and it's a game that people still come back to time and again, and I think the people who are very nitpicky on it are people who aren't giving it the credit that it deserves as what it went for and the actual enjoyment that it brings to everybody who picks up a controller.
So let me set the stage. Travis hasn't talked a lot, and that was kind of expected because he was kind of designed to be the tiebreaker here. He loves both.
I know, because you guys were very passionate about both sides, and I have
played both of them.
I have played both of them. I have, Super Mario 64 was the very first game I 100%ed. I loved it as a kid, played it constantly. I'm actually really mad at myself that I lost the copy, and then when I was...
Dude, that would have been worth a lot of money.
It would have, but it's dead, because, I suck as a kid. And then I bought it on the Virtual Console, 100%ed it again at school, and then that's when I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever actually do this again, because I got used to playing the other games, and then I never even played Metroid Prime until I came back from school. And I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe this is a GameCube game. The graphics of it is absurd, and then, what Mike was saying, that the lore of it is just so in-depth that, I didn't even realize how much exploration I was actually doing until I realized, oh, it's 2 a.m. I haven't even accomplished anything I set out to do, but yet I've, looked at all of these different species that I had no idea, were even going to be in this game. So... nostalgia-wise, obviously Super Mario 64 has, my heart in it because that was, I still think it's better than Mario Sunshine, just because I never had a GameCube. I never got used to...
Let's not get started on that, boys.
I know.
Mario Sunshine
I'm just not used...
we're getting started!
Mike, I'm just saying I'm not used to the, I forget what the... Flood. I'm not used to his mechanics. I'm sure if I got more into it, I would... because all Mario games are good platformers, but they've definitely aged better in being, just a little less clunky, like we were saying. Whereas Metroid Prime, it took me a little bit to get used to, because the left stick, you would be able to, look left and right, and then, moving forward and back. I'm trying to remember how it worked. But, one of them...
It doesn't matter how...
was directional, one of us, just... to move around, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of weird because I'm used to just the right stick being that, but that's what you use to switch between missiles and visors and whatever, which definitely worked.
Yeah.
But once I got used to that, it was perfectly fine. I'm like, okay, I just have to do it. It was slightly different than what I'm used to for a first-person shooter. Oh boy, I think I have to put my vote into Metroid Prime just because...
Yeah, I could have saw that.
It's just, Mario 64, I definitely played the crap out of, but, after Mario Odyssey came out, I almost never see myself picking up Super Mario 64 again, whereas I am still telling myself that I am waiting for Metroid Prime Trilogy to come out on Switch, just so I can replay it again, and then play the other two that I have not played yet.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I have a good feeling Mario 64 is going to be back when we do our losers bracket later.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
I have a feeling this debate is going to happen all over again.
Yep.
So
it's going to be great.
I may have won round one, but there's going to be more of this shit later. So stay tuned for that, folks. With that being said,
let's just do this one. This was going to be an easier one. Come on.
Yeah. Well, so Metroid Prime advances. It is going to be taking on either Outlast or Diddy Kong Racing. Travis was the quiet one last time. I'm probably going to be the quiet one this time. Diddy Kong Racing is a fantastic kart game, kind of a hidden gem when you think about it. Mario Kart 64 gets all the love. Personally, I think Diddy Kong Racing is a better racing game. It's phenomenal. It has a story. It has different modes that Nick will tell you all about later. It's really a gem kind of hidden away. On the other side of this is Outlast. Outlast is not innovative in being a horror game, but it's innovative in being a jump scare game that really is just designed to scare the crap off you without any weapons. And it was one of the games that, though not perfect, it really perfected horror. And it really encapsulated everything that you want in a horror game. It made it a short, concise experience that didn't overstay its welcome. It did so much right in, improving on what horror games have been building on for such a long time. Both phenomenal games. One Travis is very passionate about, one Nick's very passionate about. They're games that I both like. Don't love either, but I like both a lot, and so I'm curious to see what you guys are going to say here. So let's do
I'll
this.
just put it like this. Outlast, in terms of a horror game, and I don't like horror games. I can straight up say I really don't like it. I'm pretty sure I watched the playthrough.
Yeah, you and CJ both hate horror games, and that's completely fair.
But yeah, I just don't like horror games. But
yeah.
I mean, like, for me, like, I can't stress that enough because I watched when Travis and Mike did the races multiple times. When they played it, just like when we were hanging out in school, I was watching them play it. Outlast is a game that really does horror well and can really appeal to a broader audience. And that is something that Diddy Kong Racing just can't do. Diddy Kong Racing, if you pick up a controller nowadays, you are going to struggle. And unless you've played it a lot, you will not understand what you're supposed to do. Diddy Kong Racing has actually a broken mechanic in there, where if you tap A at a certain rhythm, you actually go faster than if you're just holding down A. I shit you not. At the same time, drifting's broken. There's only like a couple items that are actually useful. I'm just getting all the negatives out of the way for Diddy Kong Racing before I go into the positives. The tracks are really short, certain vehicles are clearly better than others, and the bosses are almost broken. If you actually do it when you play with a certain character, you can't actually like beat the bosses. That being said though, in terms of a racing game that breaks away from every stereotypical racing or kart racer genre, Diddy Kong Racing does it very, very well. And my personal opinion I think I put it like number 3 on my top N64 games, and I did it for a reason. Because for people who got used to the controls, people who figured out the actual broken racing system, it becomes a game that is, for me, timeless. But for other people, I can understand why they will never get into it. It's a broken game. There's no denying that. But I don't know how broken Outlast is.
Oh, it can be pretty broken. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing, I was going to say to kind of bridge things here, too, is so Diddy Kong Racing is a glitchy experience. Me and Travis did a race this game, and I'll let Travis speak to this because I've done more than I need to in talking. But I would say Outlast is a pretty glitchy experience at times as well, and it's definitely not without its flaws.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you take over.
Yeah, okay. So when we did do our race, Mike was saying that he was debating if he wanted to do a certain glitch that literally the very first window you jump through to actually get into the asylum, you can like walk on this invisible wall and then fall through the entire map, and then you're in the basement of the game and about to like just beat it. Like you could technically beat it in like 10 minutes, if that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
So there's definitely some glitches. I don't know if they like decided to patch it up or not. I mean, it probably just not worth it, because if you want to go for a horror experience, why break the game like that?
Right.
And then like another thing, like the first couple times you play Outlast, it is completely terrifying. You have no idea what's going to happen. You have nothing to defend yourself with, and if you accidentally panic and hit the battery refill button, you can sometimes be in situations where you can be in pitch black and have absolutely no source of light to help you guide through, like the sewer, for example. That happened to me in my first playthrough, and it just sucked. But after you play it a couple times, our race, for example, we never even hid once. We were literally sprinting through the entire thing, and because we knew the pathing of the enemies, we like rarely even got caught. Like, we would obviously alert them because we're sprinting in, the middle of the room, but we knew the pathing to, like, still get away from them, which Outlast 2 definitely improved on.
So are you saying that Outlast 2 has very little replayability unless you make like a challenge like that?
Yeah, Outlast, I don't know how many more times I'll actually play it myself. I've played it, I think, 8 times myself, because one of them I wanted to, like, try and find every single file, which is freaking impossible. I always miss at least one. And then, like, our race, it was pretty much the don't hide challenge, because that is one of the achievements in it, is to not hide at all. Yeah, so, like, replay value, every time you play it, it gets less and less scary, because you know when the jump scares are going to happen. And this is just going to be a thing with a lot of horror games in general, especially if they're utilizing the Outlast formula of using jump scares and just trying to, like, use your helplessness to, like, instill more fear. Once you like figure out where you're supposed to go, you're not feeling helpless anymore. You're like, okay, I just got to book it to this point and we're going to be good. So replay value, I will say Diddy Kong Racing probably does have more because it's a racing game. Like, you know exactly what you're going to get yourself into. And like you were saying, there are a bunch of different things of Diddy Kong Racing that I wish other racing games could still incorporate. Like, I would love if Diddy Kong Racing came out of nowhere and came out with a new one on the Switch. Like, I'm done with Mario Kart Deluxe. Like, we played the crap out of 8 who knows how many times. I would love to like see a refreshing different type of racing game, but still have like those quirky little items and whatnot.
Yeah, but Rare's owned by Microsoft. It ain't gonna happen.
Hey, you never know. We're being buddies. One can hope.
Fingers crossed then.
Yeah, fingers
but
crossed.
Here, how about this? You mind if I chime in then, Travis?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I will say this then to kind of wrap things up, at least for my end for Diddy Kong Racing. I will say that Outlast, in terms of a single time experience, I will say that it is fantastic, and I will say that even the next couple times it is still very good. Obviously diminishing returns happens, but for Diddy Kong Racing, this might just be my personal opinion, and that's why I'm saying it right here. I don't think it really ever gets old to me. I can do those races and race the dragon, the octopus, and the dinosaur and whatnot tons and tons of times. You can use certain broken characters. You can make it harder and play a shittier character, but there isn't a racing game that I think has done a solo player campaign that's better than Diddy Kong Racing. I pointed out the things that are broken about it, but for me, I don't think that matters. I will say that it is a huge deterrent for anybody if you try to play it as a multiplayer game. One, Outlast can be a multiplayer experience as long as you have somebody to kind of do a couch co-op thing, and honestly, it is fun watching people do it, but me personally, as much as I love Diddy Kong Racing, I'll be surprised if it makes it to the next round, and if it does, it's probably getting swept.
And I don't know what kind of soundtrack Diddy Kong Racing has. I know you like...
Diddy Kong Racing has amazing music!
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, because like Outlast also has amazing music in the complete opposite way. It doesn't make you feel good and fuzzy inside. It brings you to like want to cry and, just hide in the corner. But that's what it's going for, so yay.
Here's my thing, because I'm still relatively torn, that I want to ask you, Travis. What do you think Outlast does that separates it from other horror games, that makes it not a cliche of what other games have done?
So, in the terms of the
question.
jump scares and stuff, it totally falls into the cliche of other things. But I think the fact that the only way to get away from certain enemies, at least at first, before you realize that you can run faster than them, is just hiding under like the bed because like I said, the only comfort thing you have is bringing out a camera and then being able to turn the not the black light, whatever. Night vision.
No, I know what you mean though, yeah.
So like using the night vision is like the only comfort thing, whereas like while I was playing Resident Evil, like I still have a gun, so I don't feel like I'm completely helpless. I definitely know that like some enemies are just not worth to waste my ammo for, but I still have that kind of comfort of like, okay, if everything goes to shit, I can still shoot my way out and hopefully I can find more bullets. Whereas in Outlast, if everything goes to shit, you're like, well, I am now blind because I have no more night vision. And they're still chasing me because I hear that music and I don't even know where anymore. And then all of a sudden, Christopher picks you up and, rips your head off. And you're like, well, okay. That's
never fun.
Yeah, so I feel like, because I'm not too familiar with, like, the huge realm of, like, because I know, like, Amnesia, I don't think you actually have, like, things to, like, stop you. You have to, like, hide in closets and all that. But, like, Outlast did it in such a, like, more story direct versus puzzles. Amnesia was a lot more puzzles.
Okay.
So, like, it still felt like a whole new experience, and that's why when it first came out, you saw so many YouTubers recording it, and, like, it was just so popular on, like, PewDiePie's channel, Markiplier's channel, because people are like, holy crap, this game is terrifying, and then, like, I watched PewDiePie play it as my first experience of the game, and then I'm like, wow, I want to play this myself. And then I went to play it, and it felt completely different. Like, I was even more scared when I had the controller in my hand than when I was watching him do it. Even though I knew what some of the jump scares were coming, but I completely forgot about it by the time I started playing it.
Right.
So voting.
All right. Well, you two go first, so I can think.
Outlast.
Really?
It's just the better game. I love Diddy Kong Racing. It's one of my favorites. It's not better than Outlast.
Okay. Well, my vote is also Outlast. But like I said, I do really want another Diddy Kong Racing because I feel like I would have enjoyed it more if my first dose of it wasn't facing you at school.
That's
And if the
funny.
controls are better.
Well,
I guess my vote doesn't matter anymore. Well, I'll just say, I was gonna vote for Diddy Kong Racing. To me, like, Outlast didn't do enough to separate it from everything else. I feel like a racing game that had all that solo campaign that had so much charm to it, like, Outlast had so much to improve upon, and I think Outlast 2 fixed a lot of it, but, like, to me, between Outlast and Amnesia was better and it came out earlier. It's like, Outlast was very trendy, and I think that's the reason it made it on here, but it didn't feel like it did enough, so I was gonna vote for Diddy Kong Racing, but it doesn't matter anyway.
Sorry, man. As much as I love Diddy Kong Racing, I'm happy that you enjoy it. It's not a better game. And just my personal, just objectively speaking, there's too many broken mechanics about it that like would need to be better. Like I could get past it to certain things, but overall, it's just I don't think it's as good of a game.
Yeah, both are pretty broken, to be fair.
Yeah. Well,
But
that's this round.
yeah,
Well,
all right.
this
So
matchup.
next round is going to be Outlast versus Metroid Prime. That'll be an interesting topic to have. I don't know. We'll see. Let us know if you would have voted differently in either of those matchups. If you hate me for hating on Super Mario 64, you can let me know that.
hey, you voted for
screw it.
164 game, buddy.
What happened? That's
did.
true.
You
Yeah, I
voted
made
for-
up
you
for a
voted for
Diddy
Diddy Kong
Kong Racing. So you know what? Maybe I'm not a total N64 hater. We'll find out in the next one, won't we? When Ocarina of Time is going to be doing its battle. So let us know in the comment section below what you thought of this. And that's it. We'll see you guys later. Adios.
Peace.
Bye.